I volunteer. I volunteer as tribute. All right. Okay, that was a joke. Joking. Just kidding. What's up, Flick fans? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking the brand new Hunger Games entry. It's the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Is this a songbird or a snake? Let's talk about it. So Coriolanus Snow mentors and develops feelings for the female District 12 tribute during the 10th annual Hunger Games, directed by Francis Lawrence. And once again, a Hunger Games movie is rated PG-13. This one has violent content and disturbing material. I'm not going to say it's going to be one for young kids, even though there were really young kids in our screening. Like, there's a baby there, and all of us critics are like, that baby's going to be traumatized. But teens, and maybe even preteens, they're going to be fine. This is a family movie that's darker than a lot of people will expect, although if you've seen a Hunger Games movie before, you know they can get dark, you know they can get traumatic and tragic and sad, and Jennifer Lawrence.
I volunteer as tribute.
But she's not here this time, all right? She's not born yet. We're going all the way back to the 10th annual Hunger Games. I had to kind of adjust my brain. Where are we at in the timeline? Okay, Tom Blyth, Snow. Oh.
I get it.
Rachel Zegler plays Lucy Gray, one of the tributes. Peter Dinklage is in here. He plays the inventor of the Hunger Games. So he's not going to be a happy camper for the most part. Viola Davis is also cooking up a crazy performance in this movie as Dr. Gall. I do feel like that character as a whole was a little over the top. It kind of reminds me of Elizabeth Banks' character in the original quadrilogy. It always throws me off when there's four movies. Quad Squad. Hunter Schafer is Tigress. There's a character by the name of Grandmam, so that was nice spin on Grandma. Oh, and one more shout out to Josh Rivera, who played personally one of my favorite characters in the entire movie. There's this big class of elite and uppity children in the Capitol, and there are a bunch of them that are kind of competing for this top spot. They're going to get a scholarship, get to go basically do whatever they want. And our main character, aka Tom Blyth's Mr. Snow, he has a reason why he wants to be the one to win that scholarship, but they all do. And I mentioned Josh Rivera, who plays Blyth, I believe was his last name, one of the very few characters in the Capitol that I'm kind of rooting for, because there's a lot going on with his backstory, which is very well explained, by the way. A lot of the characters within the first two acts, at least, they will get these explorations and you get an idea as to where they come from, but a lot of it is really subtle. And you don't often see that in a big blockbuster like this. So I appreciate the subtlety behind the characters. I appreciate why they have the motivation to do what they are doing. And when the Hunger Games come about and, well, these snobby Capitol kids have to mentor the tributes, it's the first time this has ever happened. So they don't know how to approach it. Some of them, they're nice about it. Others, they are not. And you get an idea as to who is who at the beginning. But Tom Blyth's character is interesting because there's a little bit of empathy there, and he feels as if he could make some changes, or at least propose changes, to make the Hunger Games better in terms of actually kind of caring about the people who are going to fight each other and inevitably kill each other, and there's going to be one left standing. That's morality out the window. And basically, Blyth and Snow and Hunter Schafer's Tigress, I mean, these are the people that we're rooting for in the beginning because we're spending all this time in the Capitol. It's hard to find people to root for, to be honest, but we're given some good character development, and I loved the way the first act of this movie progressed. We get to spend time in the Capitol. We saw it in the first few movies, but we saw it from a distance. We didn't really get to see the people behind all of this, and this gives us the best insight we've ever had as to who is running the Hunger Games and who is starting to change the way the Hunger Games are going to be run in the future. I really like the way this movie explored that. Didn't think I was going to be all that interested.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
To be honest. And you know what? I was locked in the first act. Second act comes along. Austin, where are the Hunger Games and all this? Well, we finally get to see it. It's a stripped down and kind of barren version of what we see in the other films because obviously that's elevated itself and escalated to what we see in those films, but it's still entertaining. Not that I want to see people going around killing each other, but it is entertaining. And in the midst of this build-up, getting into all of these tributes, there's one very special tribute in Rachel Zegler, who comes from District 12. It's a recognizable district, so there are going to be plenty of things in there for fans to latch onto and love. And I thought Zegler, you know, at first I hear the accent, I'm like, didn't expect that. Ended up being fine, but really the chemistry between the two lead characters is is very good. I didn't expect it to be that good, but you do care about how they feel about each other by the time it gets to the end of the second act. But the Hunger Games are happening. It is as brutal as expected. You don't get to know the other characters as much. You care about a few of them because you can tell a lot of them are innocent, but there are a few, you barely even recognize them by the end. Somebody dies and you're just like, who was that? I don't know who that was. Not that I needed to know who all of them were, but maybe more than like 3. Everything is culminating in the second act. I'm on the edge of my seat. Some CGI that was a little choppy here and there, didn't fully look like it had the biggest budget in the world, but you know what? That's fine because I was really entertained. I was locked in on these characters. The MVP for me, Jason Schwartzman, who plays Lucky Flickerman, amazing, hilarious, a great sense of comedic relief, but it wasn't over the top. Every time we'd cut to him, I was having a great time. He was the MVP of the side characters, but really, I was just intrigued throughout the entire film. And then the second act comes to an end, and I'm like, all right, that was great. Some loose ends. Got to wrap things up here, but let's go. Oh, there's still 50 minutes left. What are we going to do for an hour? My big detriment here is essentially the third act. The movie goes on too long. It did not need to be 2 hours and 40-something minutes, 30-something, whatever it is. It didn't need to be 2 hours and 15 minutes. It was over with. And then they just keep going. And I understand that what we see in the third act is integral to the story, but I think they were scared away by doing a Mockingjay 1 and 2 and it not really working. I think they were scared away into doing 2 movies here, so they just squeezed it all into one, and you feel that. This could have been 2 movies or a mini-series because it feels like they squeezed an entire film into the third act of this story, and part of me sees why they did it because there's not a Hunger Games in the third act, and how are we going to have a Hunger Games movie without the Hunger Games? I mean, the movie really did shortchange some of these moments that were supposed to be tender and emotional, and you're happy as a fan. You see some things that'll make you smile. And our main relationship, Lucy Gray, we speed through some things that I thought were so important to her story to where, by the end of the film, she wasn't as interesting of a character as she was at the beginning because we just don't really get any sort of resolution. I'm not talking about the resolution. I'm talking about the growth and the build through that third act to where they're trying to do something with both of these characters that I found more interesting than anything I've seen in a YA movie in a long time, but it's so rushed, you don't feel the stakes, and you really don't feel the emotion, even with the phenomenal buildup in the first 2 acts. So that, for me, it didn't ruin the movie. I still enjoyed it. I was still entertained, and there were moments in the third act that were great, but the third act of this film is just so messy. And that's where the divisiveness is. You're going to sit through the third act and you're either going to say, it just ruined the whole movie for me, or you're going to say, well, yeah, but at the same time, I've enjoyed this experience, and that's kind of where I'm at, right? Some things they could have done a lot better in that final act, but the experience as a whole, and even with that resolution that was rushed, some really cool things in there. And I believe fans, and I don't know, never read the books, I have no clue, but as an outside person looking in, I believe fans are going to really like this movie. Really like it. And they're going to catch on to a lot more than I did. And that's going to help me. Before I give you my score, what is your favorite Hunger Games movie of all time? The best answer gets a shout out in my next live stream. I promise we're doing one soon. The latest Hunger Games entry is not only one of the better installments, but this is a compelling and morally complex blockbuster. First 2 acts give us interesting characters and solid set pieces. The final act loses steam and feels rushed, but I thought it worked overall, man. I had a good time with this, and you know what? I would probably see it again, and didn't expect that going in. I like a nice surprise. Stay tuned. I watched Napoleon yesterday. I'm going to be seeing the brand new horror movie Thanksgiving. A lot of fun things coming on this channel. Can't wait. See you soon.